Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport.
Well, hey, Armie, it's really nice to see you again. We had a little bit of a chance to talk at AWSI, and we got a little reel on there, and just love your enthusiasm, love your energy, and love what you bring to the table. Not every brand has that, and it's really nice to see when the people working there are just as stoked and as excited as you are. So I'm honored to talk to you tonight. Looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Well, I mean, I think most people who are really serious in this game do come from a place of passion, wanting to make gear to push their own, experiences further. And that's definitely where we started. And it's what we still do. I mean, the passion for foiling and loving the sensations it brings us is what drives us forward every day. And we just want to make the best gear that we can to access those. Really, it's just the feeling of freedom that foiling gives us. So, and we're stoked to be able to share that with as many people as we can. And so thanks to everyone that's, got our gear. Thank you very much. And hope you are enjoying the glide as much as we are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Who designed your Armstrong logo?
The original logo?
Yeah.
This logo? Yeah, a friend of ours, Andy Banks in Raglan, designed that. He's a really talented graphic designer, good friend of the brand. And my partner, Rob Whittle, dragged him in and got him involved. And Andy designed this and did an amazing job. It's a great logo. We like it.
Yeah, I like it.
Simple, and it just says what it is.
Yeah, definitely. It gets to the point, but it is really nice. Yeah.
It's quite funny. Just starting with that, it's quite an interesting one. The logo was kind of like, when we were first coming up with a name, we actually had a bit of resistance. A few people were like, oh no, you'll never be able to trademark that logo. It's a too known entity. I'm like, yeah, but it's just my name, it's just my surname. And we liked it because we were really trying to build a system that didn't break. Like that was our primary goal to start with. And so it worked. The name worked for what we were trying to do. And then, we talked to some lawyers, and some lawyers are like, oh, it's going to be really hard. And it was a little bit tricky in the States. Obviously, there's, a bunch of product and branding around that. And interestingly enough, there was a toy called a Stretch Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of our, we had to actually write a very nice letter to those guys, one of the big toy manufacturers out of the States, and explain what we were doing and get them to sign off our trademark.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure. That was popular as all be back in the day in the States and Canada and stuff too.
Yeah.
Hey, no way.
Because what I guess we're making toys at the end of the day, but they're definitely fun toys to play with.
So where are you right now? I see some almost looks like crocodiles back there.
Yeah, we can do a little mini tour. I'm in the boat shed office in Auckland, New Zealand, Aotearoa. And this was originally my father's architecture studio. So he worked here for years when I was a kid and had a whole team of people working here. The desk it's kind of messy at the moment. It's not like this. It's kind of, that's the main workstation. And sometimes Nathan's working here as well, but he's away at the moment. I'll take you outside for a little bit so you can kind of understand.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So yeah. So this is a boat ramp that, and this is a boat that I helped my grandfather build when I was about, 4. I don't know if I was much help.
And you were there.
So yeah, there's the office side here. This workshop, I won't open the garage. It's pretty chaotic in there at the moment, but you can have a look if you want. But yeah, that's where I built the first foils, sort of handmade wooden prototypes initially, and then we moved on to these G10. So here's some. I'll grab this one and
sure,
have a bit of a look at it. Then we machined. Once we got really tech, we started machining some G10 foils. This was a kite foil originally, and there's this was like our Franken foil stage where I was just making anything that came to mind, and we were just trying it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. But yeah, really exciting. And this was all basically put together in this workshop, and then the CNC was done up in North Auckland on some bits and pieces, and this fuselage. Pretty interesting story. This fuse is actually machined out of a piece of an original 12-meter America's Cup boat hull. There was a bit of carbon that was being thrown away that I'd salvaged, and actually ended up machining this fuse out of that. So yeah, it's this was our first vertical that actually worked. There's the original. That's actually the Armstrong family crest. That was kind of our original logo that we then updated, obviously, to a properly designed logo by Andy and Raglan. So yeah, no, really exciting. A lot of circles on the way. But this foil actually, this was the first foil that actually went quite fast, that worked for us. And on my very first session, I was kite foiling it, and I hit a big kahawai and like stunned the thing so badly that me and my mate grabbed it, we dragged it into the beach and smoked it up and had it for dinner. So yeah, this foil worked.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I guess you never know, right? Huh.
Well, that's what happened. I thought I'd just hit weed. I ate shit really badly, went over the handlebars, and then looked back, and there's this fish, half dead on the surface. So yeah, that was I call that a successful test session.
Oh yeah, it's very. Did it ever happen again, or was that only a once in a lifetime kind of thing?
I have hit a couple of other fish, but I've never caught the fish. Like this one, it was a decent sized kahawai, which is a local, really beautiful red meat fish that you can smoke up. They just taste gorgeous. And yeah, but since then, yeah, no, I've just usually try and avoid avoid hitting fish if possible.
Nice. How long ago was that you were building and sort of started to tinker into that in that foil world?
It was kind of, I guess it was, I was playing around with all sorts of these bits and pieces between, 2013 and 2016. Basically, 2012, 2013 was a massive time in New Zealand. I talked about it a few times in some articles and stuff, and everyone knows, not everyone, but I think everyone should know, that the America's Cup in 2013, San Francisco was probably the most exciting America's Cup ever, just in terms of, the incredible comeback that Jimmy Spittle and Oracle staged against Team New Zealand. We had one win, and they had to win 8 or 9 in a row, and they did, which was pretty depressing for everyone in New Zealand. But the main thing was that was when the America's Cup really transitioned to foiling properly, and Team New Zealand were the first boat to achieve that. And I was sailing in the harbour with my parents, and the boat was just, 72-foot cat blasting up the harbour at just ridiculous angles to the wind. It would seem to us like it was just going straight up when we couldn't even work it out at the time. And I was like, okay, that's the future. And I've come from a sailing family. My grandfather built boats. My dad's been a sailing addict his entire life, and I grew up on his boat, luckily. And I was like, okay, foiling is the future. That's it. And we got into kite foiling. That was the most accessible at the time, and broke everything that we bought. So we were like, okay, I'm kind of a gear thrasher. I range between 88 and 90 kgs. So, and I like to jump stuff and push stuff in the waves as hard as I can. And I don't have the best finesse. Sometimes, especially with kiting, I used to just push hard, and sometimes you'd land, pretty decently. And I was breaking a lot of gear. So I was just in the workshop fixing it. I'd always been helping out with the boat building stuff. And so I knew how to use a bit of epoxy and carbon and the sandpaper. And so that's pretty much where it started. And then we were addicted to foiling. And then I was friends with Robbie Whittle, who's a top, kite designer for years and years. And he was in Raglan, and I was living in Raglan at the time, which is a cool little surf town on the west coast of New Zealand. And we were like, hey, there's a gap in this game, for something that's really strong. And to be honest, back then, kite foil racing was progressing pretty fast, but the rest of foiling hadn't really even happened. And so we started tinkering with these kite foils and surf foil. We were tow foiling a little bit as well. And it's definitely inspired by Laird and Rush Randall and those guys in Hawaii. It was really inspirational. And Laird and Terry Chung actually came to New Zealand and did a tow foil session. And I was lucky enough to be out on a jet ski with Daniel Kirioka and watch that. And we actually were filming. We were sort of contracted to film part of that. We did a bunch of filming from the water for Laird and those tow foiling Raglan. And I can't remember exactly what year that was. That was just before the Ultimate Waterman. So that was kind of around the same time, maybe 2015, 2016. You'd have to look it up. I can't remember. But anyway, basically, it was just like everything came together. And we were like, okay, we are doing this. We're gonna jump in, boots and all, and try and make a foil system that that people like.
Wow,
and that was
good
it.
For you. Yeah, I love your setup. I started originally, it was on just an entry-level aluminum kind of setup. And then my buddy from Montreal that was working at a store, he was like, man, you got to try this. This is like the next level. And I was like, all right. So I jumped in, got it, and night and day difference. the glide, everything. It was just, I was in love right away. So it was amazing. So, and that's, I'm still riding one of your older foils, but I still like it. So it shows to the engineering and what you guys put into those original setups, because a lot of the time you got to keep swapping gear. So yeah, no, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things, like Robbie's a really smart guy. We had a lot of discussion about the system at the start, that we wanted people to be able to evolve, their foiling journey through different sports and with different foils with the same, basic rig. And we've stuck true to that. And it's been a challenging process. And I went away and talked to a lot of, boat builders and a lot of people about, how to get the fibers, working as best as they can. Especially at that time, there was a lot of issue with, like I said, we were breaking a lot of the kite foil rigs because they were built pretty lightweight at that time. And, for us, with the fiber net here is one of our masts, and the fiber, the key unidirectionals, or we have some slightly off axis, 10, 15 degree fibers as well, that run up around the bottom bracket and down the other side. And that's a pretty tried and true layup system for connection points using carbon fiber composite, whether it's rigging on America's Cup boats or whatever. And so that's why we came up with this bottom bracket system. And it was about the fibers connecting from the vertical around this connection point here. It's a tapered fit, inside here and in the front foil. And the reason for that, I've got a fuse over here. We'll grab that.
Yeah, sure. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yes, and it's just kind of easier for me to talk about it at the same time. So this taper goes both ways. And the reason for the taper is primarily so that we wanted to be able to fit thinner foils on in the future. Oh. So like we've got, now we've got our new HAs. They're a lot thinner than, our original foils. And we knew we'd want different thicknesses of foils. And so we wanted this taper. We wanted, we wanted all of the primary loads to be taken on this. But then in terms of the rotational loads, we've got, our screw fittings that hold the rotation. And this taper allows us to have thin foils mounted onto this without really big bulky fairings. So that was a decision. We talked a lot about that right at the start, and we were kind of lucky we did. I mean, Rob's a really forward thinker, and we sat down, we had a lot of discussion about what sort of dimensions we should make with this. And that, this dimension is driven by, what sort of foil sections we thought we might be using in the future. And so far it's worked right down to 475s, our small foils, our fittings still function beautiful. Cleanly. And then this dimension of the bottom bracket of the mast, that is all about the fiber. So like I talked about before, the fiber wrapping around here is the best way to optimize, the strength in carbon fiber, basically, is to have a big radius that it can wrap around. And so that's really where the system concept came from. And I was looking at, bottom brackets and drive shafts of ships and boats and thinking, well, okay, that's a shape that's been around for a long time. It's holding load, a lot of load, and it's hydrodynamic. Okay, let's work with that. And then I sat down with my father and we drew up the hex that went into it. It's a large hex section. And then, we've got all our screw fittings with the A+ system. We have our barrel nut as well. So that's an 8mm barrel nut on the other side of this M6 screw. So we just added this, to the system for longevity, effectively. And there is, the one thing with our system, because you don't need grease or anything on the screws with our titanium. So our titanium rod, most people probably know we've got a titanium rod that goes, all the way through, and all our tapped fittings are in titanium. That includes our mast top hardware, our T-nuts, everything, because the stainless to tie connection is just a beautiful, snug connection. You don't need grease. It's not going to corrode. It's not going to fizz. But if you leave this together, especially, in sandy water, a little bit of sand can get in here. And you can get a bit of wear inside these parts with sand in there. And so you do actually need to pull this apart every now and then and give it a wash out if you're in sandy water. That's something, we probably should talk about more.
Yeah.
But the screws do hold the rotational loads. However, like with anything, you're going to need to keep your screws in good order. And it's just something that, people should realize with carbon, and most people do, is that it's an anode in salt water. And so even stainless will fizz. It's why we coated our screws. This is a tie coating, PVD coating on the screws. But even with that, when you get a little bit of wear and the stainless is touching the carbon, the stainless will corrode, okay? And so you get a little bit of tea staining, which is just the stainless actually fizzing against the carbon. That's the little rust. That's not an issue. You can clean that up with a little, steel, give it a clean. But the screws themselves, probably good for, we say 6 to 12 months in the manual. So read your manuals, check them out, and we give everyone a spare set of screws. So yeah, keep your screws good and you won't have issues. If you let your screws corrode, then they can break, and then it's a bit of a pain to pull it all out.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I take mine out. Obviously, I fit it in my car, so I have to take it apart every time. But yeah, but that's a good point about if people are leaving it together longer. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just one of those things. The ocean is a harsh environment for any material. Don't worry about that. It's why we've used the tie with the carbon. That's the best combination that you can have for threaded parts, for sure. However, you've still got to have fixings like screws and bits and pieces. And so just realize the screws, they're not going to last forever. And we definitely made a decision. Yep, screws are cheap and easy to replace. So this is our recommended replacement schedule. And we give everyone a full spare set. So you've got a decent amount of time with what you get with every part. And if you want to upgrade, get a new screw set, it's 20 or 30 bucks. It's been really cool to see how people have gone from, earlier foils, and then they just bought new foils and stuck them on their kit, and they can evolve their foiling journey into all the different sports that foiling's become,
so many now.
That's probably been the most exciting thing for us, is just seeing, where people have taken the sport, especially with winging happening when it did. It was just, I guess, the best thing for the sport. And it's just mind-blowing how winging's grown in that. It was just the perfect timing, I suppose.
Yeah, I think everything kind of vortexed together and just collided and then exploded into this. It's just endless possibilities with foiling. It's unbelievable what you can do. And with all the new things that are coming out right now and all the new stuff that you guys are working on, must be a pretty fun time to be in the industry.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you actually don't really know in 12 months really what people could be doing with the gear. So that's really exciting, but also very challenging, because you're really trying to think, 2-3 years ahead. We don't like to have gear that's just going to cycle annually. We bring out gear when we're ready, when we're happy with it. And sometimes that takes us a couple of years or more to actually come up with a new bit of gear, especially foils and the development of the foil process. And we want that rig to last, be good into the future, because when someone invests in it, for sure there might be something that has higher performance down the track, but we still want that thing to be really good for someone, for a long period of time. I can still jump on the early foils and get out there and have a good time. Yes, they're not going to pump as well, they're not going to ride as far, but they're still going to be fun to ride. Every day you get up and you're definitely, pushing the grey matter as hard as it can.
Yeah, I don't doubt. Like, how do you stay on the cutting edge of everything in this regard? Because there's so much coming out.
For a start, I do love foiling, and I love all the foiling sports that I do, and I wish I had more time in the day to pursue them. However, I did spend 10 years, in my youth, basically surfing, kite surfing, and paddleboarding. So I kind of quit my job and spent 10 years doing that. So I can't really complain, but that is what evolved into, making foils or making this brand, I guess. So I'm really lucky, and I had to work hard at some point. So this is it. And you just got to get up every day and be committed to what you do. And luckily, so much comes down to luck. I just met the right people at the right time. And now we've managed to build the team out where we have, we brought on Nathan Chuk, who's just an amazing connector of people, and also, really smart guy too. He's really driving us, in the direction that we need to go, and bringing all sorts of new consultants in. And I guess that's probably the most exciting thing for me as a learning journey, because, yep, I learned effectively through trial and error. Yes, I sailed a lot as a kid, so I could understand, sails and how they work in boats, and I had a pretty good understanding of all of that. But, foils really, I was a total virgin in 2012, and, 2013 we started with some kite foils, and 2016 we started with our first production stuff, and then, 2018 we started getting some traction on the market. So that's pretty recent history, really. And so the journey from me has been a lot of trial and error and learning from all sorts of people around me. But now we really have tapped into, with Nathan, top design experts who have full careers in boat building, top end boat building, hydrodynamic engineers, CFD experts from a wide spectrum of fields. And we're bringing those guys in to help us with key elements. So like the performance mast, that's a classic. So this one, we knew we needed to do a big mast upgrade, a couple of years ago. And we started working on this project, and we're like, okay, as with all things foil, step one, we need to start with the section. And we managed to tap into a good friend of ours, Riley, here in New Zealand, who's also getting into winging. And that's been a great thing too. Like a lot of these people, they're getting into foiling, so they want to be involved. And it's just connections through doing the sport. That's why I say it seems like luck. Maybe you create your own luck.
I think partially we do. Yeah.
I'm not speaker, but it definitely is interesting how that flowed. And so these guys, Riley got hold of literally a couple of the top foil section development experts on the planet, guys that wrote Xfoil, which is one of the key bits of software for, analyzing foil sections. And they came up with a few sections for us for this vertical after doing a bunch of numbers and looking at sections that had been used in the industry, sections that we'd used, what sort of structural engineering we needed with the fiber, because effectively you need a certain amount of cord and thickness for, the structure to have enough rigidity, right, regardless of anything else. And then you've got to draw up the section shape to work with that to give you the nice flow through the water. And this mast, it actually has, it does have quite a lot of taper top to bottom, but it's what we call a gradual taper, and it's developed to give you the best transition of load from, where you're driving it through into the foil, and then be as hydrodynamic as possible down the bottom end. And so, yeah, these have been out for a year, and I would still say these are probably the most advanced vertical on the market in the surf foil world, definitely. Kite race, there's a couple of kite race rigs out there that are being used in the Olympic kite racing, and they definitely are going next level with their verticals, but they're very specific, to kite racing, and you probably wouldn't want to be thrashing those rigs in the surf at the price that they are, because you might be getting back to the workshop and keeping them going. But yeah, it's that combination of efficiency and durability, and it's been, like I say, the process of that. It's just meant I've learned so much, and it's I feel like I go to school every day pretty much just about. It's really exciting.
Hey, let's how did you even come up with the stripes and whatnot? Because I don't know. Yeah, I want to know about that.
Well, the stripe story. It's kind of a pretty fun story. We were fluffing around with foils, and then a few people that we knew had interactions with sharks and their foils, shall we say. There were a couple of cases in Newcal that weren't so pretty, and then there was a pretty lucky, case on Maui. Where one of the top sup races was, downwinding was just happening, and he had a battle with a bull shark hitting his foil, and he was bashing it with his paddle and managed to escape unscathed. But the foil definitely, they look quite a lot like a stingray, which is definitely a favorite food source for some of the larger marine fish out there. So, and I was a big fan of Jacques Cousteau when I was a kid, and Jacques Cousteau I remember this experiment, watching it. He was a French explorer, that famous underwater, cameraman / explorer, and they did this study where I don't know exactly where they got the idea, but they had a striped board that they baited compared to a non-striped board. And sharks that hadn't seen the stripe pattern before, they swam up and then they always would turn away.
Yeah.
And it was something, their science was sort of saying it's something to do with the shark not being able to tell exactly how many objects it was. And so I was like, okay, well, that works. Did a little bit more research. There was a company in Aussie making wetsuits with stripes on them as well. So I'm like, okay, there is a bit of a thing here. Let's put stripes on our rigs. And hey, it kind of looks cool, but let's do it because it has a function as well. And then I met an interesting Colombian artist on a trip coming back actually from doing some work at a factory. And, we kind of became friends, and I was talking with her about the stripes I wanted to put on these foils. And she said, "Oh, send me an outline of the foils and I'll draw something up." And yeah, she came up with this double tapered stripy pattern. So yeah, Juliana Duran is her name, super talented Colombian artist. And then Andy Banks, our graphic designer in New Zealand, came up with the logo. So we put that on top, and that's it. That's been our trademark since the beginning.
That's pretty cool, eh? That stuff like that comes together and it becomes such a, like, all you need to do is go down a beach and you see these stripes, like, oh, you're on Armstrong, eh? Oh yeah, you're on that, eh? Yeah.
It's pretty, I mean, the double, like, I do love this double taper pattern, but this, the geometry of this double taper, she came up with that, and we've stuck with it, for, I don't know, for every part that we make, every foil part that's in the water, it works, and it, I don't know, it's definitely worked for us, and yeah, we like it.
Yeah, cool. So bringing in all those engineers is there a reason that the whole industry is going more towards that and end of things, like making it a lot more sophisticated?
I think there's been so much work done, especially in the last 15 years in this field by people who have been involved in hydrodynamics, their entire careers, and really, really smart people. And I think it's I guess it's that crossover. Like a lot of the sailors who are, in those really top end projects, the F50 Sail GP or the America's Cup, or, the around the world boats, with the big foils as well. It's similar. It's the similar design crew putting all those hydrofoil parameters together for those projects, and they're interested in foiling, and they're interested in wing foiling. A lot of them do it as a recreation because it's much easier and less, takes less time than getting out on a boat. And so I guess there's that knowledge base that we're lucky enough to be able to tap into, and I think that's happening across the board for everyone. I don't think we're particularly unique in that, and it's fantastic. It's great for the sport. Like it's there's so much work already been done that these little gains, and I guess you call it a little gain, but that's the beauty. I mean, you make a small change to a foil section and it makes a really big difference to how it works. So, it's really exciting. Yeah. I mean, it's just great. So it's like this perfect vortex that's come together and everything's swirling together forward, and it's really exciting.
Oh, nice, man. That's so sweet. Let's talk about... So you were just working on a whole bunch of foils, and I was talking to your team. So what can we share?
Yeah, well, we've got the new HA foil range. So the HAs were, the first project where we really got involved with the boat guys and got a bit of, intelligence from them. But now we've been working much more closely with the whole group of people, and we are ready for the next version of our HA4 range. And we are very excited with where this range is at. We're going to have 580 up to 1180 in 100 cm square increments, so a really wide range, 7 foils. And this is the 980 I'm holding here. And the magic with these foils really comes from the section again. And we talked with a lot of the guy, the foil experts, shall we call them. And one thing they said is you want to start with something that you really know and just change the section. That's the main parameter you want to understand first, and then get the outline, the aspect ratio, the ronder, get all of these other elements working with the section. And so we got a friend of ours in West Oz Chris Porter, who's actually an aerospace engineer and working for some pretty interesting, Australian military projects, among others. And he did a foil section study for us, looking at the speed ranges that our HA foils are working at, some other HA foils, and really honing down what foil section would work for the speed ranges of surf foiling and connecting and glide.
Okay.
And so we did a bunch of analysis with some GPS, looked at some numbers, and gave Chris some speed ranges that, stall speed, takeoff speed, top end, glide ratios. And he then had a good look at a whole lot of sections and came up with a few. And we put those into our previous HA foils and some of our MA foils. So we didn't change anything else. We just put the new section into the old foil.
Oh,
So we just made one change. So we committed to a bunch of molds. And it's interesting, like originally when we were prototyping, like especially back here in my workshop, I was grinding bits of wood and hand shaping everything. But what we've discovered is with the foils, the layup and the technology of the layup's really important to how the foil feels when you ride. And so we've transitioned now, which is, we're really lucky, having our own, foil manufacturing facility. But we've basically transitioned to our prototyping in the same steel tooling and molding process as we use for production, which means the foil construction is exactly the same, even through our whole prototyping range.
Oh, okay.
Which
that's cool.
It's really cool to be able to do that, and we're pretty lucky. And so, we put this section into our old foils and, a few different sections, and we ended up on this section that we're using here, which is, it's got a little bit of undercamber on the bottom and actually a ton of reflex on the top surface. And the combination of the leading edge radius and the camber and the curves just mean that this section really likes to stay high in the water column, and it's really easy to bring back up, which just gives it that really efficient pump and glide that we were looking for with this range.
Okay.
And then you got to tie in the aspect ratios and the roller with that section so that you can turn the thing where you want to turn it. We're really excited with these things.
Beautiful.
Got us too.
Beautiful. Yeah, they look that'd be super fun to. Oh yeah, okay, we have some turn down. Okay. For those just listening, we're getting a very nice show of the new HA, so make sure to hop on YouTube if you want to check out what we got going on right here. Beautiful.
Yeah, so no, that range has kept us pretty busy. But this year, Nathan's an amazing facilitator, and we looked, he's been, with us for a couple of years now, and we looked at where we wanted to be. He drew out a 5 and 10 year plan, which I to be honest, I've never looked that far forward in my life before, so it was a little bit scary, but really exciting at the same time. We went, okay, this is where we want to develop. This is where we see it going. And hey, then we were open, we were flexible as well. But what it's meant is that this year we've had the APF pump foils, new wings, new board range, the HA range coming at the end of the year, and the Downwind performance foils. And that's like we've got tails and everything feeding into that as well. At the beginning of the year, we had the performance mast and the MAs, the last of the MAs coming. So we've had a pretty big year.
And when do you sleep?
Well, they do. So everyone says that if you find something you love, it's easy to work. And I'm just really lucky. Honestly, I got to come back. I can't. It's just, I'm really grateful, and thank you to everyone for getting into foiling. Keep doing it, because hey, this is the best fun you could ever have. And every day, there's definitely could have more sleep, but at the same time, every day you get up, it's so exciting just to, see what people do around the world on the gear. Like every day someone's doing something cool and you're just like, wow, that is so epic. Okay, I got to spend more time on the water so I can get better.
Did you think that foiling, because it had been around, did you think it would explode into what it is now with all the different disciplines, all the kids getting into it?
It's really interesting. Like the gestation was kind of long. I mean, Laird and Rush Randall and Robbie Nash and Pete Cabrina and, Campbell Farrell, a bunch of, early adopters were toe foiling on those sit-down adapted Mike Murphy foils 20 years plus ago. And it took a long time for kite foiling even to kind of happen. And I think it was the America's Cup that really put it to the forefront of of people's mind and thinking and got people pushing. I don't think I'm unique in that at all. And, it's no surprise that, Mike's lab out of San Fran was probably the first foiling system to really go next level, especially with the kite racing. And hey, he's in San Francisco, which is where that AC was. So I do think there's a big connection there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Mike Murphy is a real character, and he's one of our, main contacts in North America now. He looks after the North American wake market for us because he's been dealing with that industry for forever. And he's, the original co-inventor of the sit-down foil. And yeah, he's blown away. Like I talk to him all the time. He's just like, he's not surprised because he's been a foil addict, for 50 years.
Oh, sweet. That's amazing.
But yeah, he's just like stoked with where the industry's at and happy for his invention. I mean, he invented the original vertical fuselage front wing tail wing. I mean, that's what those guys did. That was, and the basic system is the same now as what those guys made. Yes, the different materials, different shapes, but that single vertical fuselage front wing tail wing. Hey, Mike had the original patent on a vertical with the bolt-on fuse. I mean,
yeah, I was talking to George from Delta about some of that those days, and it's just so fascinating learning from all of you and just getting to see all those different stories and how it evolved and how you all kind of got into it yourselves, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was really into the kite foiling, which is where a lot of us came from, because that was the first development really in what we might call modern sport foiling, I guess, outside of those tow guys wanting to, ride big waves in windier conditions. And it's just really snowballed from there. And it's just an exciting time to be involved. So yeah, it's
I'm happy to hear that. When did you decide to get into boards as well? Like obviously you're making.
Well, actually, I was doing boards. I was doing boards beforehand. So I actually ended up working after, chasing SUP racing around the world for a while. I was making my own SUPs and racing on them. And I ended up working for a Kiwi guy who has manufacturing in Asia. And I was working with them, helping them implement, peel ply and some other boat building technologies in their factory, and just helping them with some quality control in a factory, but that was primarily manufacturing race SUPs, surfboards as well, but their primary at that time, mid 2000s was race SUPs. So it was a really big game, much like foiling is now. It was really exploding. The race paddleboarding was, the Battle of the Paddle, the Molokai Tawai, all these events were really big on the scene. And so, yeah, it was really exciting. That was where I really got my introduction into production. And yeah, John's a great guy. He taught me a lot about how factories function and made some great contacts. And so, yeah, I was working on boards for quite a while. I did a few years, off and on in the factory, and then got addicted to foiling and was like, okay, now we're going to make our own foil system. And luckily I had some contacts in manufacturing. And so, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's kind of how it worked out. We made boards at the same time as we made foils. I mean, hey, the early boards were pretty ugly, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I've got one here. I don't even know if I want to drag one.
Oh, man, I'd love to.
Do you want to have a look at one? This is where I was probably too influenced by what the boat guys were doing. So here you go. This is our first kite foil and tow foil board, which is 411 by 40 litres. So there you go.
Hey, beautiful.
411 40 litre kite board, tow board. And I was probably, too influenced by the catamaran. What we were trying to, at this point, this is 411, which back then was very short. We thought this board was really short. Mm-hmm. But in actual fact, it's for where we're at now. Yeah, we've got our current wing boards are smaller than this. But I was, kind of a bit too trying to channel the catamaran thing with the front end of this board. But yeah, some of the other elements of the shape worked. And we didn't make too many of these. We made a few. We were all Tuttle box back then. So
there we go. That's a piece of history right there.
Yeah, I mean, I keep that one around to remind me to, to think a bit more before committing to carbon glass.
Oh, well done, man. I would frame that for sure. Keep that. Keep it. Yeah. Okay.
I've kept one. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I got too much junk, and I do have to do a clear out. I got too much stuff in this shed, but anyway,
fair enough. Evolution of wings, it's come huge, right? Like from kind of like a floppy bed sheet that you kind of held on to the high performance wings that we have going on with different canopy section, different pieces. And then now we're going into non-stretch materials, and yeah.
Well, it's the same. It's the same with anything. It's just a beautiful thing to be involved with the development process and everyone pushing forward. And for us, our first couple of efforts, we were finding our way 100%, and we had to do it because it's just such a great fun part of the sport. I don't know quite why. Whenever I was, doing a lot of other foiling, I picked up a wing, and for some reason, straight away, I went, "This is just so fun." And it's probably the simplicity, no kite lines. You can paddle out from a rocky coastline somewhere on a lake and go winging. Whereas kiting, always has that thing where you need a lot of space to set up with your lines and everything. And so, even though I'd, kited for years, I guess it was just that freedom of just the simplicity of rigging up and heading out. So the development side for us meant, we're busy with boards and foils, and we are primarily a foil company. And so we were like, okay, if we're going to properly do this, we need to get some people who have been developing and designing these kind of products for a decent period of time. And so we started searching, globally for who we could partner with for developing, our new wing, which became the XPS. And we found some great, French design guys who they're really thoughtful, really smart. And yeah, we had a great time developing that project with them. And luckily for us, the market went through this weird phase after COVID where there was, a lot of the brands had a lot of stock, and everyone was freaking out, not knowing what was happening. I mean, you had the troubles in Europe, which didn't really help, I don't think, with the market. And so there was a bit of a lull, for probably the whole of 22 really. It was kind of a weird year for everyone to.
Yeah, it was tough times.
And probably the first half of this year as well. And so there wasn't for us, thought we needed to get a new, we're like, oh, we got to get a new product out at the beginning of 2023 or even, late 22. But in actual fact, we decided actually it's not the right time and we're not ready. Primarily, we weren't ready. We just started this relationship with these guys. We wanted to actually push that properly and see where we could get to by doing a proper development cycle. And it was really rewarding because each time we learned something, they were very structured with their prototyping process, which was, we learned a lot from actually. It was really cool. And how they broke down, making each change and getting progress on the wings. And it was just, great process to get a sample, go through the pros and the cons, compare it to the previous one, and then go, okay, where to next, make that plan. And then, a few weeks later, you have the new wing in your hands and trying it. It was just a great time.
Oh, yeah.
And that was right. Like New Zealand, you guys may not remember, but New Zealand hung on to the segregation / lockdowns for a lot longer than the rest of the world, probably a year longer. We ended up being in lockdown a long time. And for us, it was kind of, I guess it kind of worked out because we were, instead of traveling around, like we usually were, to a lot of places, we were really stuck at home and we could just focus. It was really simple. We know our locations, and we were just testing wings in the same place every day. And it's actually probably one of the hardest things for testing, full stop, is the conditions. Because if you test exactly the same rig in two different locations with different conditions, it has a different feel. I mean, just the energy in the water, chop, the reverb, there's so many things going on. If you're really trying to understand exactly what's happening with one bit of kit, you have to make a change but keep everything else the same, and that includes the conditions. So it was lucky for us that we were stuck here. It just was kind of lucky to come back to lucky. I don't know why. That we were stuck in New Zealand and we had to test in the same place all the time, which ended up being the best thing we could do because we really tuned into what those different features of the wings, were doing. And then we came at the end of the process, I think we came up with a pretty nice product. We're stoked with how it's going.
Yeah, I got to try out that new wing this fall, and I like the webbing on top of the carbon there. I liked how it performed. It pumped well. Yeah, it was a good wing.
Yeah, it's all about that wing was all about something that felt great for a wide range of use. We weren't targeting race, we weren't targeting freestyle, we weren't targeting wave. We just wanted it to be able to do all of those things really well. And it's achieving that. And it's just a great, comfortable, fun wing to ride.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. I found that. I found that, and I wasn't sure what those handles were because, on the onset, I didn't know it was carbon on the inside, but it was stiff, and it was like, oh, it's a mixture of both, and it was like, this is pretty sweet. So no, that worked out well.
Yeah, so we're calling it a hybrid handle. I mean, there's pros and cons to every handle system, and we just felt, at this stage, we preferred that style of handle. It's got, it's a bit more forgiving on the board and on your body, so there's a little bit of flex there as well, which kind of helps. Like I can get to this elbow sometimes in my right elbow, so that was from I kind of injured that paddling in the Molokai to Oahu one year, paddling far too long on one side, and it was hurting. And you're in that race, you're going to just carry on until you get to the end, and yeah, little injury, niggly injuries. So yeah, just a little softer on your body, and we like it. But hey, there's plenty of great options out there now, so that's the most exciting. Anyone getting into the sport, hey, you buy into any decent brand, you're going to have a good time.
Who originally designed your first kind of bags that came out? Because compared to some other ones that were coming out, like when I got my V1 from you, their bags and all that, like when you got this, you felt like you had, okay, I got 6 bags, I got all this stuff, I got my parts, it came with everything. Now, not everybody did that. That's one thing I did like.
You're paying X dollars for your foil rig, and the most damage that happens with all of this stuff is
storage.
When it's not in the water, when you're putting it in your car or walking down the beach or whatever. And so we made a bag system up, and that was myself and a friend of mine in Raglan to have a bag that would pack with every part, but also when everything was together, board, foil, front foil, tail foil, you put the bags on, everything fitted, and you could put it on the roof of your car and drive down the road with the bags on. So that was, and that's what I did. Like I always have racks on my cars, and I just leave everything together and just put the board on the roof. That's what I do at the end of my session, and just drive. But I put all the bags on, right? Because sun, bugs, I don't want that stuff on my foil. So yeah, we just were like, yeah, the bag's got to work for the kit. I mean, why you wouldn't do it, bag?
I guess you'd be surprised because that was the one thing. And there's all these little pieces that make a choice for like a consumer end kind of thing, right? There's all these little decisions that different people do. And there's like, and yeah, so anyways, that was just one thing that stood out for me that I thought was interesting.
Well, we use the gear every day. And so we know like what makes it easier to use. And if it just seems obvious, I don't know, you want your kit to last as well as it can. I mean,
yeah, you do.
Make a nice bag for it. We're proud of this gear. We want it to last for people. So yeah, we've done that across the board we do it with our boards as well, which, I mean, it makes sense because you want, light boards are fragile items. I mean, hey, we make them as durable as we can. We use full Ennegra wrap underneath the carbon, which is, the strongest way you can make a composite board, in terms of the fibers. And, that's great. But if you bash a board with something hard, you're still going to ding it, regardless if it's how the board's made. In any board, unless it weighs an absolute ton, you can ding. And so, having a bag with it just makes sense.
Okay. No, fair enough. Is there anything you'd like to let everybody know about your new releases and why they should hop on this new stuff?
Well, I mean, we got the Wing FG board range has been out for a little while, and we are very excited with that range. That's been a decent time in development, and the team riders are just absolutely loving them. I've been loving them. They're just simple, easy to use. They feel great to use, and we really honed down what we think a wingboard needs to be, and 10 sizes in the range, so something there no matter what volume you need. I think they're quite compact for their volume, so you don't need to step down massively in volume with those boards. Just be be aware, unless you're really ready for it, you can stick with a similar volume maybe to what you've got, and it's going to ride like a much smaller board. And that's paired with our forward geometry, which is a pretty big thing. Like, we've had forward geometry for a while, but, having the tracks further forward in the board paired with the foil system that works for that just makes the board ride much smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So, no, really, really excited about the boards. The XPS, that's been going great. We talked about that. No, we're just excited by seeing people out there shredding on that. The Downwind performance foils. I mean, they are a really interesting area for us because after the kiting and the sup foiling, we did get into downwind. I got personally on downwinding in a pretty big way because I've been sup racing, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do these sup races I used to do, on a big sup on a foil. And I was making foils for that, and I was, the only one doing it. And obviously Kai was doing a few here and there. And yeah, in 2018, I think there were 7 or 8 of us at the start line for the M2O. So very interesting times. And the downwind foiling, it's actually another surprise how much it's developed in the last year, but let's say 2 years really, but especially in the last year, it's really become a thing in the sport. And I guess that's because foiling's maturing a little bit as a sport. And so you've got a lot of people who are already quite good. And downwind foiling is demanding. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. So it's possibly the most demanding side of foiling, but it's also the most rewarding. And I think surf foilers, or surfers generally, actually, it might really become a big part of the future of foiling that, might surprise a few people, because surfers, for a start, they're getting into winging more than they ever did with windsurfing and kiting. And I'm not quite sure why, but maybe it's because they're doing a bit of surf foiling, in the small crumbly waves where the surf isn't great to keep themselves in shape. And the downwinding, I think, is really going to appeal to surfers because when it's really windy, the surf isn't great, and it gives them a long, really fun ride when the surf's pretty average. So yeah, I mean, there's some top pros who are just absolutely loving the downwinding at the moment, putting out great content of going on downwind missions. And
oh yeah, it looks so fun.
I think, yeah, it's got a really interesting journey, the downwinding. So yeah, downwind performance foils, they were developed 100% for blasting downwind. And yeah, they're a pretty exciting foil range. Ton of bottom end for quite small foils. So you can get up and make them go, but you can also, go really fast on them. So yeah, no, pretty fun times.
Nice. All right, so we got a bunch of stuff then. And so that's cool. Where are you off to next? I know you just came home and you're kind of traveling everywhere. So are you home for a bit, or?
Yeah, I've been up at the factories for a while. We spend quite a bit of time, in the factory facility, just making sure all of our material suppliers bang on what it's supposed to be. All of our processes are accurate, and also improving our processes. Like, there's always something you can improve. And we always do. Like, whenever we discover an improvement in the layup, and we do a lot of testing, that a lot of that information will be coming soon about what we do. We have our own test facility in the factory. We've got a lot of specialized equipment for doing that testing. And it's really important in the stability and consistency of the manufacture to test all the materials and also randomly select, parts in production and put them through full testing right up to breaking tests, to just make sure that everything is consistent and we're improving the whole way. And I love it. I get up every day, and you can see it 2 ways. Hey, there's problems to solve every day, but there's also things to learn and improve every day. So every time you solve a problem, something gets better. So it's, it's in life, nothing's just simple and all done and dusted. Like, there's always a small improvement to be made somewhere, which is, I love it. I think it's great fun.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think that's what keeps pushing the sport, and that keeps bringing new products out that we love to ride. And it just brings out new different sensations, because there's a lake that I sail on all the time on Vancouver Island, and I was just thinking it's pretty long, and that would be a pretty fun downwind run.
What sort of breeze do you get?
Oh, there, we can get up to 30 knots. Yeah. Nitnat Lake is one of the most infamous ones, but we could definitely do a nice little downwinder from up there, and that would be so fun. So it's opening up possibilities for so many people.
Epic. Oh, no. Well, that's right. And it becomes a real, like, downwinding is a real adventure sport because you're going from A to B. You've got to work on your logistics. You've got to figure out options if the weather changes. You've got to look at the weather properly because you can be going quite far out to sea. Down a bit of maybe in a hospitable coastline. So it becomes more of an adventure sport than just a little mini session at the beach. So it's a whole nother dimension of foiling, which is it's just so fun.
When you go out, do you bring GPS watch? Like in skiing, backcountry skiing, they got beacons and stuff. Like, do you think that'll be the next thing that'll come out with this sport?
For downwinding, you either take your phone if there's coverage, or definitely you take water packs and some flotation of bits and pieces if you're doing a big offshore mission. But for testing, we use GPSs for sure. And we have some pretty cool devices that we can bolt onto the board that give us, really accurate data, a lot more than a watch, proper sailing tools. But for downwinding, the most important bit of gear is probably your leash, and go with friends and make a plan. Like it is a, especially if you're in the ocean somewhere, it's a more of a proper ocean adventure. So just take the usual precautions, and you'll be good.
Yeah, it's good just to mention that. But nice. Well, heck, we covered heck of a lot in an hour. And is there anything else you want to?
It's an hour already. Sorry for talking so much.
No. Is there anything else you want to talk about or bring up or let people know?
I don't know. I mean, just thanks a lot for having us, and to everyone out there that's got some Armstrong gear, thank you very much. We're just really appreciative that you're out there, and we're hoping you are loving riding the gear as much as we do. And there's lots of new bits and pieces coming that you can jam on your rigs and get out there. So the main thing to everyone is keep enjoying the stoke and push your progression, whether it's winging or dock starting or whatever kind of foiling you're doing. I mean, have fun, and thank you for doing it. It's just so cool to see everyone getting involved.
Oh yeah, it's more and more and more, and in a time where we needed more joy and more happiness and stuff because of everything that was going down worldwide. This has come at a perfect time, and I think that's the main mission. That when I talk to everybody who's running a brand, it's the same thing. They're just so stoked to be able to share that stoke, which I think is what this is all about.
100%.
Well, hey, Armie, thanks a lot for joining me tonight, and I'm sure we're going to have you back on to chat more gear. And thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.